welcome everybody. It's nice to have you all join us here today. I'm just going to put a bit of a disclaimer at the start of this presentation. So I can see a few people have messaged in the chat, so I'll message you back afterwards if your questions haven't been answered. But yeah, this session is probably really only going to be relevant if you're currently studying at school, and probably really if you're not wanting to apply sort of this October, so sort of further on. So if you're in years 9, 10, 11 or younger than that, then this is probably going to be quite relevant for you. So I won't be offended if you want to hop out of my session and jump into another one that you think is relevant, but please feel free to stay if you think it will be relevant, and we'll get started. So yes, I'm Sarah and I work for the new Lincoln Medical School. So the Lincoln Medical School is part of the University of Lincoln and also part of the University of Nottingham. So students that come to us study the University of Nottingham medicine degree, but they study it over at our Lincoln campus, which is part of the University of Lincoln. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is a little bit about why it's never too early to start thinking about applying for medicine, and what are the sorts of things that you can be doing to get yourself ready for applying for medicine. So I thought it might be quite useful initially for us to have a look at some of the important attributes that the Medical Schools Council say all medical students should be starting to develop and should be really thinking that they've got a good handle on when they're looking to apply for medicine. So I'll give you a quick moment just to have a look at some of these, but you can see we've got things like empathy, having good communication skills, being able to deal with uncertainty, being able to work as part of a team. And what I want to talk to you about in this presentation is a lot of students think that work experience, particularly clinical work experience in a hospital, is going to be the thing that's going to benefit them most when they're applying for medicine. And obviously that element of it can be potentially important to think about, is medicine actually really the right career for you? But actually there's loads and loads of different ways that you can start developing these skills, which are going to be really relevant for you when you're looking to apply or when you actually start studying medicine at university. So we'll have a look at a couple of ways that you can start developing these skills when you're actually still at school, and before you're necessarily thinking of submitting your application. So one really good way of starting to develop these skills is to look at sort of school clubs and school societies. These are classic ways to develop a wide range of skills that are going to be necessary for medicine. So if you think about if you are a member of your football team, your netball team, you take part in drama, you might play an instrument, you can probably start to think of the sorts of skills that you'll develop from that. And if there is the opportunity to take on a leadership role, that's going to be a really, really good way to develop leadership, team working, communication skills. So these are some really good ways that you can start thinking about developing these skills. Other ways that you can look at developing more of your leadership skills are to take part in positions that might be available at school. So a lot of you will probably have the opportunity to apply to go on the school council. Some of you may be able to be head girl, head boy, heads of years. These are really, really good ways that you can show to medical schools in your future applications that you've got the leadership skills that they're looking for. Another thing that could be really important for you is looking at external clubs. So things like scouts, guides, cadets, they're all really good ways to show a wide range of skills that you can develop. External clubs are also really good at displaying to medical schools that you've got a good time management skills. So if you're able to still study and achieve the A levels that you need, as well as being able to take part in external activities, that shows that you've got a really good balance of your time. And then volunteering. So like I said at the start, a lot of people think that the only sort of work experience that medical schools will want to see is that you've shadowed a doctor or you've been on a hospital ward round. But that absolutely is not the case. And it's really important, I think, for applicants to realise that, particularly at the moment with the situation that we're in, not a lot of hospitals are taking work experience placements at the moment. What they want to see is more about the development of skills and the development of you as a person, and volunteering is a really, really good way of doing that. Again, it may be that traditionally medical students might have gone to volunteer in care homes and various things, which again at the moment is not something that you're able to do. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't volunteering opportunities available to you. When you start back at school, if there's the option to take part in reading clubs to help support younger students, that's something that you can look at doing. There's probably lots of ways as well in your local community at the moment you can get involved in volunteering opportunities. So it's really worth looking these kinds of things out. In terms of when you're at school and starting to explore medicine as a course, a lot of people don't realise until it's too late that there's actually loads of really, really good opportunities and projects that you can take part in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects that we have at Lincoln and also at Nottingham, because we're a combined course. But these will run in a various ways all up and down the country, so it doesn't really matter where you are actually from. You will probably have a local opportunity available to you. So one of the things that we're involved with is something called Pathways to Medicine, which is part of the Sutton Trust. So if you want to Google this afterwards, you can have a look. We'll be taking applications for next year. And what this scheme is students can apply for it, and you will take part in a number of projects at the university that are related to applying for medicine, and it will really give you a good insight into it as a course and as a career, and will really gear you up for making a good application. So we take part in Pathways, as do Imperial, Hall York Medical School and Newcastle University. But just to say that these sorts of projects, a lot of universities offer these. So some might offer their own internal university ones. So Sheffield University, for example, run their own medicine one. They also run a dentistry one for any students that are interested in something like that. Similarly, down in somewhere like Brighton, they have one that runs across the southeast area. It's worth having a look at what universities run summer schools. So this year at Nottingham, and for students that applied for our Lincoln Pathways as well, we ran 2 weeks of Nottingham online summer schools, but normally we would run 4 weeks of physical summer schools on the campus. And again, these are a really good way of starting to explore what medicine might be like. It will give you the opportunity to talk to current students and find out a bit more about these. And again, this is the sort of thing that I think a lot of students don't realise is necessarily available to them unless your school very actively promotes these. But what I would say is wherever you are, wherever you're listening from today, is to go onto your local university who offer medicine or offer the healthcare course that you want to do, and have a look on their website and see what opportunities are available. Because something like a summer school is also a really good way of doing this. This image here represents something that we run specifically in Lincolnshire. So last year we ran an Aspiring Medics programme, which was for students to go on work experience into hospitals. Now again, as I've mentioned, this isn't something that is probably going to happen as much this year. However, lots of universities, ourselves included, but lots of other universities I know as well, are looking to try and give students the similar insight into medicine that you would gain from work experience. So that's really what work experience should be about. It should be the opportunity for you to talk to current doctors, to see what goes on a ward round, for example, to see whether you like the idea of interacting with patients, that kind of thing. So what we're doing at Lincoln is we're putting on a series of evening sessions where there will be a panelist of clinicians that students can come on, and we will have an interactive question and answer session with them, and all of that will be displayed on our website. If anyone is interested in booking on, it will all be available on Lincoln's website. But similarly, universities up and down the country are offering very similar things, so it's really worth checking out what is available. And then finally, I wanted to talk about a couple of ways that you can get involved with work experience at the moment. So a number of websites are offering virtual work experience at the moment, which someone may be talking about this as part of one of their sessions today. I don't know, but I thought I'd cover it as part of mine. So the Royal College of GPs have recently launched their Observe GP platform, and this is for anybody to join on, and you can take part in a virtual work experience session with them. Similarly, the Brighton and Sussex Medical School, they also have a virtual work experience platform, which you just need to log your details with and sign up to register. So these are some really good ways that, while you might be missing out on a physical element of work experience, you're still able to explore medicine as a career and medicine as a course. And another really good way that, again, I think sometimes people don't realise, is that a lot of the time you can actually get in touch with current medical students throughout the year. So I'll talk a little bit about our student societies, but again, like I keep saying, these sorts of student societies will be running at pretty much all of the medical schools up and down the country. So if you're not local to Lincoln or you're not local to Nottingham, don't worry. If you're in the northwest, perhaps look at Manchester and Edge Hill. If you're in London, for example, have a look at Imperial, UCL, places like that. But I'm just going to talk briefly over what a widening access to medicine, or usually called WAM society, is, and the sorts of things that they involve. So our current medical students set up societies where they help potential medical students find out information about what it's like to be a medical student, and they can really help you with your application. So just for example, these ones are running at Nottingham, but we will be running some at Lincoln next year with our new Lincoln cohort. But the students organise these events themselves. They're for local learners to book onto and come along and find out more about the application process. So you can see here, they do anything from kind of an introduction to medicine all the way up to, once you've probably applied, UCAT, BMAT prep evenings. They also run MMI, so multiple mini interview mock sessions as well, which we found really successful and have helped hundreds of students out in the past. And another thing to note with the students is, whilst they run these sessions, if you find that you don't seem to have a local medical school in your area, or you're not able to attend the university for various events, the students will often have contact details on the pages where any potential medical student or medical applicant can get in touch with the students, and they can speak to them and find out more information. So that can be a really good tool when you're starting to do your research. And my presentation is really brief today, so I'm happy to kind of take any questions. I'm going to exit the slide here because I can't see the question panel at the side. But if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I've had a question here from somebody called Jacob, who says, do you have to be living in a certain area to be eligible for widening participation programs? Usually, Jacob, the answer would be yes. So normally, so for example, with the Pathways programme, we tend to take students that come from the East Midlands, which is where Lincoln and Nottingham are based. That is predominantly because we often get students to travel to the campus to come and take part in the wider participation programmes. So if a student is more than, say, an hour's drive outside of the university, that can be quite challenging. However, that doesn't mean that that's the only opportunity to take part in something. Our summer schools recruit nationally, so we have students from all over the UK that normally would come to campus to take part in a week-long summer school. And this year, because they've been virtual, we've had students from all over the country come and take part. So what I would always suggest to you in that scenario is look at your local medical school first to see what they offer. If they don't offer something, or you don't have a university that's close enough in terms of a medical school, have a look at some other ones as well, and always just get in touch with the outreach department. They'll be very happy to kind of answer any questions that you've got. Let me have a look. Advice on personal statements. Yeah, so in terms of personal statements, these are really up to you. So at Nottingham and Lincoln, we no longer score the personal statement. So in terms of inviting applicants to interview, the personal statement doesn't count. The personal statement comes more into play once we're deciding who to make an offer to post-interview. However, that's very specific to our medical school. Different medical schools use the application differently. So some medical schools might have a really strong weighting on the personal statement. The one thing I would say from having advised students is that all medical schools will be looking for the key attributes that I spoke about at the start of the presentation. So the best way to kind of try and structure your personal statement is to really think about what attributes make a good doctor and how you have started to develop those attributes. So for example, if you were talking about teamwork, you might talk about a recent school project that you had to take part in where you had to work as part of a team. You might talk about a sport where you play as part of a team, and then link that back to how those skills will be relevant for you to apply for medicine. So that would be my advice with that. Someone else has asked, in terms of does your postcode have to be in a certain quintile? It really depends. So for a lot of widening participation and outreach programs at the moment, yes, postcode does come into play, but that's not always the only thing that might class somebody as being from what we call an outreach or widening participation background. And again, it can be very specific to the university that you're looking at. So for example, things like being first in family to go to university, if you're on free school meals, if your school is perhaps an underperforming school. These are all things that can come into play when you're applying. So the best thing to do with any of these outreach programs is to have a look at which ones you might be interested in, and then see if there is any set criteria involved with being able to gain access. If you find that you don't actually fit into a widening participation stream, so you can't take part in the specific programs, the best thing to do is to get in touch with someone from the university, from the team. There'll always be contact details on there, and ask them for some advice, because they'll always be able to point you in the direction of helpful websites, other events that we put on that are just for students in general to find out about information. So that's what I would recommend with that. Someone's asked a really good question: is virtual work experience viewed in the same way as an aspiring graduate entry medical student that hadn't had the chance to get work experience in a hospital? So particularly for this year, I can only speak on behalf of Nottingham. Well, I can speak on behalf of Nottingham because we don't offer graduate entry at Lincoln. But in terms of from Nottingham's point of view, we are not expecting students to have experience working within a hospital. We're aware that the current situation makes that very difficult, and actually a lot of students may have organised something that may have since been cancelled. So something like a virtual work experience will showcase that you've really took the time to find an insight into this as a career. Also, coming to something like today's careers conference is another thing to reference in any application, because I imagine in some of the sessions you've had the chance to listen to current doctors. You may have been able to ask them questions like you're asking me now, and that is another great way to show that you've gained an insight into what medicine would be like as a career. What I would suggest for this person who specifically asked that question is, depending on where you're looking to apply for graduate entry medicine, the university should have released a statement on what their view will be on for work experience this year. And if you've got any queries or any concerns around it at all, is to get in touch with the university directly to find out from them. Someone will always be at the end of an email or a phone, and they'll be able to help you out with that. Can we still apply to University of Nottingham Medical School? I'm going to take this in the sense that, can you apply to Lincoln and can you apply to Nottingham, which is what I think you might be asking, Isabel. So yes, so the Lincoln Medical School is a set, it's the same, you'll study exactly the same course as you do at Nottingham, but you'll be based in Lincoln. However, you can apply for both courses. So if you're interested in our course and you really like Nottingham as a campus and you really like Lincoln as a campus, you can put both of them down on your UCAS application form. What will then happen is if you meet all of our relevant thresholds, you'll normally be invited to interview, and you'll only have to interview at one of the sites. You then may be made an offer at both. You may be made an offer at Lincoln, or you may be made an offer at Nottingham. It really depends how the interviews are working for that scenario. So I hope that's answered your question. The key attributes, Sarah, that were mentioned, I think, I'm just going to check with Jono on this. Is there somewhere to share the presentation afterwards, Jono, so that people can see things like the key attributes?
Recorded. So yeah, it should be.
Lovely, that's great. So Sarah, the key attributes that I mentioned at the start of the presentation, you'll be able to find if you rewatch the recording, but I've actually taken them directly off the Medical Schools Council website. So if you want to write down Med Schools Council, if you Google that, there's a really good document on there which talks about key attributes that medical schools should be looking for in their applicants. And if you go on there, then you can find all the different attributes that you should be looking to kind of start to develop. Do you think medical schools generally look very medicine again? So someone's asked if medical schools look favourably against students who are applying again after being previously rejected. So each application cycle is independent of itself. So actually, if you, let's say you applied for medicine at 4 universities that wasn't Nottingham or Lincoln. If you then applied again the next year, unless you make specific reference to that, we wouldn't necessarily know that you'd applied for medicine because we would have never received your initial application. We are quite happy to take reapplicants if you want to reapply again for the following year for medicine. But again, that's something that you should look specifically on different universities' websites, because some universities will say if you've been interviewed at their university before, they won't consider reapplications the next year. So it's really university dependent, but yeah, we're absolutely fine with that at Nottingham and at Lincoln. How would you reference a conference such as this in your application? So you could put it into your personal statement. Sometimes on, I can't remember, say, if you were a graduate, so apologies if you are, but if you're a graduate, you probably won't go through UCAS. But if you are applying through UCAS, you can sometimes select if you've taken part in different conferences, if this is listed as a code. But if you can't put it on there, then I would definitely put it into your personal statement. And similarly for graduate entry, you'll be asked to write a personal statement or why you want to apply to study medicine. So I would reference this in there. If you don't have room on your personal statement to apply your virtual work experience, is anyone else you can list? So Grace, in terms of if there isn't room on your personal statement, I would argue if in terms of what you should be putting on your personal statement, something like taking part in virtual work experience is probably quite a key one to include in there. So perhaps get somebody either at school or a family friend to have a look over your personal statement and see if there are bits that you can cut out or bits that you can change. But in terms of your experiences, they'll really come into play once you get to the interview stage as well. So whether that's a traditional panel interview where you are asked a series of questions by perhaps 3 or 4 people on a panel, or whether you take part in the multiple mini interviews, which we run at our university, then you'll be able to reference things like virtual work experience there. Do you think someone can ever be too specific? No, so Isabel's asked if anyone can ever be too specific in a personal statement. Absolutely not. So I can see that you've mentioned that you have a dream to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. That's absolutely fine, and it's great to mention that you've got a particular interest. The one thing I would say to be careful of is to make the when you're writing your personal statement is that you're aware that there will be opportunities to explore other avenues of medicine, because sometimes people think that you will automatically go down a particular career path if that's what you want to do, whereas everyone studies exactly the same medicine course for the first 5 years, and then obviously it's only once you've done your F1 and F2 years, and then you're going into your specific training, so you've still got quite a long way to go yet. But yeah, there's absolutely no problem in mentioning that you have a particular ambition to do something, and that's why you're wanting to apply for the course, so that's absolutely fine to do that. Would you recommend a deferral entry? Do model applications be effective? Yeah, so someone's asked a really good question about would we recommend deferral entry if you've not been able to gain an insight into medicine, I suppose, and would your application be affected? It's absolutely fine to apply for deferral entry. Again, always check with specific institutions. It's certainly fine to Nottingham and Lincoln, but there may be other universities might have a different view on this, but yeah, no problem with applying for deferred entry. The one thing I would say is in terms of Experience, certainly from our point of view, like I've said, we are not expecting anybody to have physical work experience this year. So that isn't something that you need to worry about. You won't be penalised if you don't have any physical work experience. However, the one thing I would say is medicine it's a long degree, and medicine as a career is a lifelong learning. It's something that you go in. It's not a career, it's not a course that you're going to probably take and then maybe swap and do something else at the end of it. So you really want to make sure that being a doctor is what you want to do before applying. So if you want to apply deferred because from your own point of view you're not 100% sure on it as a career, then yes, I would definitely, you know, recommend it as an option. But if you are sure, it's just you're not sure about kind of the work experience element, then that isn't something for this year that you need to worry too much about. Someone's asked if Nottingham and Lincoln is a PBL school. So no, not specifically. We do, and what we mean by PBL, for anyone listening doesn't know, is problem-based learning. So no, we do elements of problem-based learning, but actually we're more of what you would class as a case-based medical school. So normally at the start of a week, students will get a case, and the case for that week might be let's say all around the heart, and then all of your lectures, anatomy, timing, clinical skills, which is where you do kind of the practical side of the course, will all be related to that case. So they may all be related to the heart, and different bits of the case will be released throughout the week. There's elements of problem-based learning in there, but we're not specifically a problem-based learning institution. What makes UON and UOL the best medical school in your opinion? Well, I'm from the East Midlands, so I'm always going to champion coming here. It's a really, really great place to come and live, to come and study. In terms of extracurricular, there's always loads of stuff going on. I'm going to talk about Lincoln because that's really who I'm representing in the call today. So Lincoln has kind of got I suppose the best of both worlds, depending on what you want your student life and student experience to be. So Nottingham, for example, is a really well-established course. It's been running now, the medical school's been open for 50 years. And what that means is that Nottingham has grown exponentially from when it started. So we have now at Nottingham around about 320 to 330 people per year, which for some people they absolutely love, and they love being part of a really, really big cohort of students. But for some people that isn't the right setting for them. So if you think actually you would prefer a campus-based university in a beautiful city where you're part of a smaller cohort, so our Lincoln cohort is only around about 80 students per year. So students and staff feel that they know each other really well. All of the students feel like they know each other really well. Lincoln as a county is really excited to have the medical school, so there's lots of chance to go out on interesting placements. We're going to become the centre for rural medicine, so if you've got a particular interest in that field, Lincoln could be a really, really good shout and a good suggestion for you to put down on your form. So it really depends what you want. That's a nice thing I think about working across Nottingham and Lincoln, is that they both offer the same great course, but they offer almost totally different study environments, and some are really going to suit one group of people and one is going to really suit a different group of people. What I would suggest is both universities are having virtual open days at the moment, as will all the other universities across the UK. So I would definitely try and book onto some of those, listen to some of the staff talk, listen to some of the students talk. Our Lincoln students have had a really interesting year because they're the first cohort, and then obviously we've now had COVID hit, so they've only really had about half a year. But every time I go over to Lincoln, the students absolutely love studying there, and they love being over in Lincoln. So yeah, hopefully you'll check that out. If you want to ask me any more Lincoln or Nottingham specific questions, if you come into the Expo tab and find Lincoln Medical School in there, then you can come and ask me some more specific questions after this. How would you show empathy in a personal statement? So there's loads of ways that you can show things like empathy without necessarily volunteering. You might, for example, when you get back to school, if there's the opportunity to take part helping out with younger year groups, that's a really great way to kind of develop empathy and start to show empathy. At the moment, if there is the opportunity to volunteer within your local setting, whether that's supporting neighbours with picking up bits of food, chopping, things like that. Again, this is dependent on how old you are, so always make sure that you're working safely. But yeah, there's loads of different ways that you can kind of show empathy. And again, if you go onto the Medical Schools Council website, there's some really good ideas on there of things that you can start doing. Our interviews likely to be online this year. They're going to be online most likely for our medical school. However, I wouldn't want to speak for the whole of the medical schools. It probably will be varied. So the best thing to do, if you know where you want to apply to or where you're interested in applying to, is to drop them an email. Most will have a course inquiries or a similar type of page. So the best thing to do is to drop them an email and find out what their plans for this year. But yes, we are very likely to be running interviews online this year at Nottingham and at Lincoln. Someone else has asked, will MMIs be able to run? Yeah, so at the moment, I know there's discussions around how to move MMIs online and what these will look like. But certainly from our university, that is still likely to be the case. Other than work experience, yeah, so in terms of other than work experience and volunteering, how would you students build on attributes and skills? So perhaps if you've taken up a new hobby, so I ordered this during lockdown, which I have to say I ordered with good faith and haven't really learned to play anything on it yet, so that's really poor on my part. But taking up a new hobby is a really good way to develop skills. So it can show determination, dedication. It can show that you've got good dexterity. I mean, I've got poor dexterity because music clearly isn't my skill. But something like that, in terms of if you are making face masks for yourself, for your neighbours, that can start to show that you've got good empathy skills, that you are a caring person that cares about their community. So there's lots of different ways that you can start to sort of showcase that you've done that. Someone else has asked about, said that their hobby is writing. How can you incorporate it into a medicine personal statement? That is an interesting one. There will definitely be ways that you can do that. Perhaps if you like writing, if perhaps you start a blog, that's a really good way of showing that you are taking an interest in the world around you. Perhaps you could write about, blog about the current pandemic. You could look at ways that your community has changed. There's lots of different things that you can do depending on what your sort of skill is. And if you're good at writing, then you'll probably produce a cracking personal statement as well. Completed a BSc in biochemistry at UON. Will that give me a head start? So if you're looking at applying for graduate entry, we take any course as long as it's a 2-2 and you have to sit the GAMSAT exam. If you want to find out more specifics on this, Sarah, pop into the Expo afters and I can chat to you directly. But no, in terms of kind of a head start, obviously you can imagine everyone is on an equal playing field when they're applying for a new course. But again, pop into the chat and I'll answer that because that's quite a specific question. What are the acceptance rates for medical schools? Again, you can find all of this information on the Medical Schools Council, what the acceptance rates are. They vary depending on what the medical school is, and again, they will vary year on year. Some years, some medical schools might have a spike in applications, so their acceptance rate might be slightly lower or slightly higher. So I wouldn't like to give an estimate, but usually you could say maybe every 7 applications, maybe 1 is successful. But the best thing to do, if you go on to, I think it's on the Medical Schools Council website, they should have recent stats for you to have a look at that. Someone's asked how does intercalation work at Nottingham and at Lincoln? So we don't offer students the option to intercalate, but we're quite unique in the sense that we all of our students come out with 2 degrees at the end of their course without intercalating. So all of our third year students do a dissertation as part of their course, and they do a research project. And at the end of year 3, all students graduate with what we call a BMed Sci. So all students will get the BMed Sci at the end of third year. You will then go back to continuing your studies, and then you'll get your Bachelor of Medicine at the end of 5 years. So that's another reason that some students absolutely love coming to Lincoln and to Nottingham, because they get the option to do 2 degrees but without taking an extra year. And there's lots of opportunities and lots of different research projects that you can take part in. So if you want to find out some more specifics of what students have done in the past, pop onto our website and there's some information available on there.
Just to pop up quickly and let you guys know, we've got 5 minutes left.
Fab, thanks, John. If I don't get any of these questions answered, guys, I'm just working down them in the order that they're coming in, but any that I don't get answered, feel free to pop me a direct message and I'll help you out as best as I can. Yeah, someone's put a really good thing from the Medic portal about comparing acceptance rates and lots of different data from med school. So thanks, Amelia, for doing that. That's a really good shout to go onto there. Still a bit confused about how to write a personal statement and to do a CV. Rimi, if you want to pop on to the direct chat afterwards, I can help you out with that. So if you just look for me under Sarah Vickers and message me directly, I'll help you with that. And Jacob's asked what a BMed Sci is useful for. So the BMed Sci is actually, it's useful in lots of ways. It can gain you extra points when you're going into your when you're looking at applying for your F1 and F2. Students are ranked in various different ways, and the BMed Sci can give you some extra points on that. But what I would also say is, we really hope that students, when they apply for medicine, want to study medicine and want to become a doctor. However, for not all students, but for a handful of students, they get to the end of third year and think, actually, now I've taken part in this full time, I'm not 100% sure that this is for me. And students, certainly that I spoke to, the handful that have done that, have really appreciated that after 3 years they're able to graduate with a degree and move on to something different. It's also a really good way for students, without intercalating and without taking an additional year of study, so without making their course into a 6 year, it's a good way to find out if research is something that you're interested in. So it's not something that a lot of students necessarily think about. They think about wanting to become a doctor and working in the NHS. However, some students take part in their research projects and are surprised at how much they enjoy it, and actually start to consider going more down the academic route once they've graduated. So it's just a really good way to give you an insight into that as well. I'll answer 2 more questions, and then if I don't get any more, like I say, pop on and ask me. Yeah, so University of Nottingham and the Lincoln one is a 5-year course. Yeah, the standard medicine is 5 years. We offer a course that has a foundation year as well, which is a 6 year. So you study for a foundation year first, then you come on to the 5-year course. We also do a graduate entry medicine, which is anyone graduate. So you must have done another degree first, and that is a 4-year course. All the information on how to apply for these is on our websites. Are students allowed to choose their dissertation and research project? Yep, so there is, the way that works is there is a whole host, is around about 300-400, I think, different projects that students can take part in, and the students will then normally rank 1, 2 and 3 in terms of their preference. The vast majority of people get whatever their first preference is. Some students obviously have to go on to preference 2 or perhaps preference 3, but because there's so much choice available, 9 times out of 10 students get pretty much the one that they want. And the research is in a wide variety of areas. So some students are currently working with me, so looking at widening participation in medicine and applying to medicine. Some do more specific stuff in anatomy and that kind of thing. So it really depends what your interest is in. Yeah, and Rimi, it should be Sarah Vickers. I think if you search for me in the people, or if you come into the Lincoln stand in the expo bit, you should be able to chat to me directly there. And then I've just got 2 more questions and then we'll finish. So no, Isabel. So Isabel's asked if students want to integrate at UON. So no, we don't offer our medical students the option to go off and do another degree as part of it. So if that's something that you definitely want to do, Lincoln and Nottingham probably isn't the right course for you. But there's plenty out there that do let you intercalate. So it's best to probably have a look at some other ones as well. And then finally from Sam, who's asked, can you tell me the best alternative to medicine? It really depends, Sam, on what you're interested in doing and what about medicine you like. So if you want to work in a role that is predominantly caring for people and you want to work still within a healthcare role, there's so many different opportunities out there, nursing, paramedic sciences, just to name 2. If you're more interested in kind of the research around medicine, the research into drugs, things like that, at Nottingham we do a cancer sciences course, which students who much prefer more lab-based stuff rather than interacting directly with people is the sort of thing that might suit you best. And I think, Jono, I've just about managed to get all the questions in, and I'll stop there because I'm aware I'll go over time. But thanks everyone for listening, and thanks for all the questions.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for speaking today. Loads of incredible points, and hopefully all our viewers took a lot from that in their medical applications. When you're ready, if you just press leave, then that will exit you from the whole system. I've also messaged the group to see if they can figure out what's going on with the video in the expo. So hopefully someone should get on with that soon. But if not, I do apologize. Just keep spamming the team. They'll get you eventually. Lovely.
No worries. Thanks ever so much, Jono. And thanks everyone for listening. Like I say, if you want to come and ask me any more questions, I'm going to be here for the rest of the session in the Lincoln Expo stand. So just come and find me there.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.
So guys, the next session is going to be at what time? 3:20. So you've got about a 10-minute break if you want, or just visit one of the other hubs. So yeah, I'll see you guys at 3:20.